let's talk about a vaccine for performance nerves. Now, why do I call it a vaccine? I call it a vaccine because a vaccine essentially is giving you a low dose of a particular kind of disease, yeah? So if you're getting a flu vaccine, they're giving you a dead flu. That's what we're going to be doing with your students. What is stage fright? Okay, so if you've been watching our videos for a while, you know the different parts of the brains. Midbrain is feeling, emotions, and instinct. Forebrain is thinking, words, that sort of higher level processing, and your hindbrain is movement. Now, we use this analogy of a car for the brain, that the forebrain is like the trunk where you pack information. The hindbrain is like the engine, that's what gets you to move. But the midbrain, where your deepest kind of non-verbalized emotions are, that's the driver. Now, because the midbrain is the driver, it's ultimately going to have the greatest influence over what gets packed in the trunk and how the engine moves. Stage fright is an overactivation of the midbrain. So essentially what it is it's the driver having concerns and nerves over how to go. And if you've ever seen a nervous driver, you can probably see a ton of parallels to how performance goes. There's an interesting thing here about the brain. The brain can actually practice something without having to actually do it. There's this great book called Talent is Overrated, and in that there was actually a story about a young girl who watched tennis constantly. When she finally got on the court, she had some learning to do, but all of that watching actually created skill in her. Her brain could see what was happening, analyzed it, even tried it out in the room before she ever got on a court. You guys have probably heard of stuff like that. It's visualization. We're going to do something a little bit different in your music classroom. Because the brain reality of performance nerves is just that it's an activated midbrain, we are going to spend time in the classroom activating your students' midbrains. So what does that look like? Well, the midbrain is where survival lives. So you are going to do tiny little things while your students are performing that is going to make them unsettled. So let me give you an example. In this room right here, this is my private studio. I do this in the classroom as well. What I do in here is I have a student sit down and this is what I say to them. Your goal is to perform this just like you would on stage, no matter what happens. So even in this space where I'm kind of getting some anticipation in my voice, they're already sort of like, that's awesome, because that's an activated midbrain space. We're already getting ready for performance. So then what happens is they begin to play, or when I'm teaching in a classroom, they're beginning to play or sing. And I'm very quiet and I move around the classroom kind of with eyes on them. And then I'll go someplace they can't see me. So I go behind them and I slam a door really hard. Now, the first time a student ever experiences this, they stop and they're like, whoa, what happened? And I go, you stopped. Don't stop. No matter what happens, don't stop. When I slam the door, that loud noise activates their midbrain and they stop because their midbrain was activated. So their forebrain and their hindbrain cease activity to figure out whether they're going to be able to survive. And what I do is I have them start at the beginning. I run exactly the same thing. And from then on, I do as many things as I can to try to distract them. Distraction training is training that midbrain to sieve out, to push out anything that might cause it to activate. So I clap loudly in their faces. I'll look at them with eyes, like I'll do weird stuff like this. I'll be silly. I'll dance around. I'll do this. If I have the chance, sometimes I'll take water bottles and squirt them, and they have to keep performing no matter what. They can't stop what they're doing. By the time this has happened, the kids at the end are like, oh, that was the worst. But when they get on stage, is anything as distracting as that going to happen, including their own native nervousness? No. That kind of distraction training creates some incredible performers. I would love to hear from you what you guys do to prepare for performance. You know, group minds are always better than a single mind. So I would love to hear what you do. If you can join us, we've got a QR code right here with our Facebook group. I'd love to see you over there. Follow us, join the conversation. We're having a great time over there. This is the very last week for you to get your training for as cheap as it is. It's only $99 right now. That is 20% of what it normally is. You've got an 80% discount, and it's for the entire year. So if you're thinking to yourself, I am so swamped, I cannot start this training right now, get in there anyway, because you're going to be able to do that training anytime in the next 12 months. I can't wait to hear from you. Looking forward to seeing you again next week.